Hi, I'm Heather from BooktUbes, and today is my March reading wrap-up. March was terrible. Thanks for asking. I'm in the worst reading slump I have had in 3 years, so that's cool. Now, you might have looked at the thumbnail and were like, dude, you read tons of books. Don't talk to me, okay? Don't talk to me. The number of books does not reflect, is not the pure, it's not the end-all be-all. So just hear me out. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was the worst. So I read 44 books in March and I DNF'd 17 of them. 17 books. Which means I'm going to talk about 27. You're just going to have, just watch the video, okay? It was not great. As always, we're going in chronological order. Number 1. I gave 2 stars to Property of the Mountain Men by Gemma Weir, which is Montana Mountain Men. God in heaven. Number 1. I gave it 2 stars. This main character was annoying. And that's why. And also the couple had the exact same conversation all the way through the book. The writing was not fantastic. Basically, they've been neighbors for like their entire life, but she's 19 or 20. She's young and he's significantly older, and so he has never looked at her that way in any way, but he's been showing up to her cafe every morning and every night for like a year, and he's her first customer and her last customer. And so he like walks her to her car, makes sure that she's safe, all the things. She has always had a crush on him, but is kind of over that because, you know, he's never going to give her that attention. And he is just not aware that he has a thing for her because he kind of hasn't viewed it as permissible. Well, then every time they argue, he says like the exact same sentence, which is like, I'm a protective, overbearing a-hole. And they didn't have the conversations and dialogue and banter that I really wanted. A lot of it was just very repetitive. But it was really possessive and jealous and over the top, and that was what I was in the mood for, so in that sense it worked, but the rest didn't live up to it. Then I read Filthy, which is the Firepoint's Mob Collection #1 by Serena Akeroyd. I gave this book 4 stars. This is Mafia. We have a 25-year-old virgin. There's dubious consent in that she would consent whether she wanted to or not because of the power that he holds. That's made pretty clear, not necessarily to him at the beginning, but to the reader it's made clear that that is her viewpoint, that you don't say no to a points man if you want to live. Lots of bad things happened. The couple remained solid. There wasn't a lot of internal conflicts, but there was a lot of bad things that happened to them. And so a good portion of the later half of the book, they were in separate locations, so it wasn't very couple focused in that way. I will say, this has one of the most realistic gun wound recovery things. Like, they were not banging the day after somebody got shot. It was like months later. And I thought that was interesting because I think a lot of times that gets brushed aside in overwhelming losses. Like, you have a gunshot wound. I doubt it. I definitely have read somewhere I was just like, okay, you are in so much pain. There is no way you'd be trying to bang, much less like banging. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. This one was realistic in that, yeah, I don't know. It was 4 stars. It was Irish Mafia. She's a baker. I don't want to read baker books. It's fine. It was good. It was fine. It was good. Then I read Untouchable by Sam Mariano. I gave this book 3 stars. This starts with the hero sexually assaulting the heroine. They are both in high school. It is on page, and it's not fun. And then he just kind of forces himself into her life as her boyfriend, and it's interesting. It looks into interesting psychology and about consensual non-consent, sometimes coming from a trauma like that. But ultimately, he was willing to hurt her, not necessarily physically, but he was willing to hurt her and, you know, break things that were of value to her in order to force her to be with him, even at the end. And that's not my favorite dynamic for the overbearing sociopath man. Then I read Tame by the Highlander by Madison Faye. This was bought for me by Izzy from Happy For Now as a happy 1,000 subscribers gift. So that was super sweet. And I gave it 3 stars. It was Smutty Highlander, not available on Amazon. You can't buy any of Madison Faye's books on Amazon. This one definitely followed 4 friends. The other 3 friends have their own books, but I never really like when you see so many of what's going to happen in the other books. In the one book, I really like to just focus on the one couple. And he's a Highlander lord, and he wants her, and she's like, why? Or something. And they're also an arranged marriage, so like, but they make it smutty pretty quickly, so that was fun. I liked it. Then I read The Stranger, number 4 by Chance Christopher. I gave this 2 stars. The Stranger is a series of super short stories that are all based on the same male-male couple, but they are basically one-night stands, but with the same people. So each one's like 20-something pages long. They bang, and they're like, we can't be together. Over and over again. And this one had like some weird suspense elements thrown in there, and drugs and Vegas and assault. And they still can't be together, so I was kind of over it. Then I read Break Me by Meagan Brandy. This is Brayshaw High number 5, but as a standalone, it follows a different couple. And I gave this 4 stars. This one is high school drama, so he basically shows up at her door to get her as a revenge plot against her brother, and her brother has been lying to her, and she's been lying to him. She hasn't seen him in a few years, and her life is really bad. She's in a bad situation. So he kind of rescues her, but he kind of rescues her out of revenge. And then she understands him and stuff, but he just unnecessarily pushes her away for a 3rd act breakup, because if he loves things, he'll hurt them. So he doesn't want to do that. So he hurts her to push her away, that type of thing. I just kind of thought it was contrived and very unnecessary. That was the only part of the book that I didn't like. The rest of it is excellent, new adult, over-the-top drama. And it was greatness. And by the way, the guy is one of the ruling guys of Brayshaw High. It's a great series. If you like dramatic new adult, it's so good. It's like candy, it's addictive. You'll read one book after the other, and even when you're like, this is never gonna happen, you're still like, you guys are so over the top. I really like you. Then I read Omega Academy, which is Omega Academy number 1 by Lily Archer. I gave this book 4 stars. It's a reverse harem Omega verse. She is a human who doesn't know anything about Omegas and Alphas, and then they are 3 Alphas, and they feel the mate connection with her, and there's a circle. It's kind of like an infamous, it's like the most powerful mating thing, so it's 4 people, but also you're not allowed to mate in school. And you're not allowed to just pick your mate. There are a lot of deciding things. There's the council that like rules over everybody, and they're like, no. And also, for some reason, everybody like wants this one Omega. And so there are people stopping her from mating with the guys that she feels the mate connection with. So that is always stressful for me. And it was also in like a school setting. But I really liked it anyways. And I do plan on picking up the 2nd book. The 3rd book isn't out yet, so I'm not in a huge rush, because the first one definitely ended on a cliffhanger, and I don't want to be left on the 2nd one with a cliffhanger, but I do plan on reading it. This is berry lemonade soda, by the way. Do you have Jones soda where you live? It's so great. It's really hard to find, though. Then I read Cutie and the Beast Volume 1 by, oh man, I forgot to look up the name.
Yuhi Azumi.
I meant to look it up. I gave this 5 stars. It was the first manga of the month, and I loved it. I actually physically bought this one. It's a pro wrestler who's like 10 years older than this 18-year-old who's still in high school. She's like his #1 fan on Twitter. It's really not icky. He tries to have nothing to do with her when he finds out her age, and they don't have like any sexual relations or anything. 3rd one comes out in the summer. I have the 2nd one. I haven't read it yet, but I really loved it. It was my first 5-star of the month, so. Then I read Dirty Kisses, which is The Lion and the Mouse #1 by Wright. I gave this book 5 stars. This is for the Taboo Book Club. Tamika and Ashley had a great live on it. It was so much fun. I'm supposed to be buddy reading the 2nd. I'm not. I'm on like the 2nd page. I'm doing a terrible job in my life. I think there's 5 books about this couple, but I also found out during the live show that I don't think the series is actually completed. So there are trigger warnings for sexual assault as a child and lots of violence. But he is like the head of the Russian mafia worldwide, and he comes to New York because somebody killed his money cleaner, his launderer, and so he needs a replacement, and she's suggested, and he picks her, and he's fascinated by her. It was so good. She was so smart and clever, and he was so taken by her. I just really enjoyed it. The second book picks up right where the first one leaves off. There's some interesting reveals in the first one. And they also leave New York, and I think the rest of the series might take place in Europe. So I'm very excited to continue. I just need to pick it up. Then I read Hefty by Jessa Kane. I give this 5 stars. It was Jessa Kane obviously writes some of the over-the-top novellas, but this one was an overweight, and I'm using that, you know, it's an overweight high school guy who is like the linebacker, and he's so in love with his sister's best friend, but he doesn't know that she's in love with him, and the sister knows that she's in love with him, but she doesn't know that he has feelings for her. So like the sister isn't in conflict at all, which love that. That's all I want out of sibling friend love relations, is for it to not be a drama issue. It's fine. Not fine, but it's fine in this one. She's a cheerleader. He's the linebacker. He starts off insecure, and he does end up kind of getting secure from her attention. There's an unnecessary breakup, but what are you gonna do? And it was so cute and sweet, and I loved it so much. It's just a Kane, so there was still a couple of over-the-top moments that you were just like, no, that's not what we do. I loved it. I loved it so much. Then I read Should Have Been by Alexandria House. I gave this 4 stars. This is a short story, and this one does have cheating. I can't remember if it's a short story or a novella, but this does have cheating. So basically, should have been, when they meet, they are both with other people, and it's the idea of now they have a second chance, and they always should have been with each other. But in the flashbacks and stuff, they do cheat with each other on their significant others, even though their relationships weren't great or anything. And there's definitely a trigger warning for domestic abuse from her past relationship. Then I read In the Hand of the Goddess, which is Song of the Lioness #2 by Tamora Pierce. I gave this book 5 stars because of it being an all-time favorite, but this reread, it was more of a 4-star read for sure. This covers Elena going from ages 15 to 18, and it does skip around a good bit. It's the rest of her training. It ends with her becoming a lady knight and going out into the world. And so the next book, which I'll be reading in April for the read-along that Ashley from Bookish Realm and Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany are doing, it will follow her doing knight things. There's a little more romance in this one, obviously, because she reaches age 15 to 18, so we can do that. I love it. I love it. It's such a great series. Tamora Pierce is truly one of the great YA authors, in my opinion. Then I read Fire in His Fingertips, volumes 1 through 2 by, I didn't look up any names,
Tanisha Kawano.
So this is manga that is basically porn levels, the erotic levels. It shows everything. So they're childhood friends. He's a fireman. She gets stuck in a fire. He rescues her. And then it's kind of dubious or questionable consent. But I was talking to some of my friends, and it seems like women in Japan are still not supposed to want to have sex. So I think that might be a common theme through manga. I'm not saying that that's great, but I can also understand what's going on, you know? So she wants it, but she's not supposed to want it, so she acts like she doesn't want it, but that's not made clear. I don't know. It was so hot. And Izzy from Happy For Now sent me these, loaned them to me to read, and I'm very grateful because they were amazing. And I read King Size by Jessa Kane. I gave this book 5 stars. This is another smutty novella. This is more of a fantasy. She is the queen, and he is her guard, one of her guards. And he's a large man, and he's submissive in the bedroom, and it's an age gap, and he's way older. And again, unnecessary 3rd act breakup. And again, he starts off really insecure and kind of gets to being secure. but I loved it. Then I read Primitive Boyfriend volumes 1 through 3 by
Yoshineko Kitafuku.
I gave these basically collectively 3 stars. I was not all that impressed with this. So she's not attracted to any of the guys her age, and she thinks they're all kind of not alphas. She thinks they're all betas. So a goddess sends her back in time to primitive man, and she finds her soulmate, and she doesn't realize it till she gets sent back. Then she gets sent back, and she finds her soulmate, and she doesn't realize it until she gets back. And then she gets sent back, and she finds her soulmate, and then she wakes up in modern times, and then she finds her soulmate in one of the people she already knew. Yeah, there was no real couple time on page, and I think that's my main issue. Then I read All Things Burn by Jodie Slaughter. I gave this book 3 stars. He is a hitman, and she has a stalker who is an ex-boyfriend. And she wants to get a gun from her cousin. He's like, I'm not giving you a gun. Talk to this guy, he'll do the job for you. Okay, great. But then he's like completely unprofessional. I had so many issues, and it all had to do with, you guys are gonna get caught. Like, why are you letting her do this? She's not a professional. You're gonna get caught. So basically, she was just way too involved in all the murdery things for my taste. For me, I either like for the hero to take care of it all, kill people for me. I'll be over here reading a book, you know what I'm saying? Or I love when the heroine is extremely capable, like in Dirty Kisses, more than capable of taking care of her own crap, killing her own body, you know? I like either one of those. What I don't like is the heroine being inept and like me, if faced with it having to kill somebody. Would I be professional about it? No, I would not. I would probably get caught. But would I want my hitman boyfriend to let me kill him? And then I didn't get it. Didn't see the appeal. It's very sad. But the whole time I'm just like, you guys are gonna go to prison. Mistakes were made. Then I read Living with a Sadistic Beast Volume 1 by
Yuki.
And I gave this book with 2 stars. So he's her boss and stepbrother. It definitely reads as sexual assault. And there's a lot of power dynamic issues. But it's mostly that everything is sexual assault. Then I read Maybe Next Time. So good. Which is Vegas Nights #1 by Christina C. Jones. 5 stars. This is a marriage in trouble. And he's like, we're not getting divorced. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And it's so good. And they both have to confront their issues and their grief, and the things that have gotten in the way of their marriage. But there is a big content warning for miscarriage in this book. So if you are sensitive to that, you would need to skip this one. But it was so well done. I loved this novella so much. Then I read Until That Night, which is Happily Ever Alpha World by Melissa Williams. And so all of these are kind of spin-off books of Aurora Rose Reynolds' Mason family. I gave this book 4 stars. And we have the very believable premise of an heiress finding a billionaire in a small town when she ran away from her controlling family who's trying to take all of her money. It was candy and I wanted it, so I ate it and it was good. That's all I got for you. Then I read Maybe This Time, which is Vegas Nights #2 by Christina C. Jones. Gave it 5 stars. It was friends to lovers, done so incredibly well because they went from actually being friends and then there was a catalyst that changed their relationship and they became lovers. It wasn't pining. It made sense. It made sense that they went from friends who were happy being friends to actually finding more. And that's all I need out of friends to lovers. That's why I don't like it in general, is because it's like they're pining, or it's like, if you guys were so great, why weren't you together the whole time? And this was so good. It was very satisfying. I loved it. It was the sibling from the first book. If you are sensitive to miscarriage, you could always skip that one and then read the rest of the series because it's really, really good. Then I read A Taste of Her Own Medicine by Tasha L. Harrison. This is a small town romance and I gave it 4 stars. So our main character practices gula, which is a magic and culture preserved from the African roots, specifically by slaves in South Carolina and Georgia, I believe. But this one was South Carolina, I think. And she's older, he's younger. She's trying to use her gula recipes and magic and healing and stuff, but her recipes to do a online store to support herself because she's having a divorce and she has kids, teenage kids, and then the hero is younger than her and he is the leader of the entrepreneurial workshop that she's going to. And the only thing I didn't like, the only reason why it wasn't 5 stars, was she was really insecure about the fact that she was older and why would he want her, because her ex was very negative. And then her ex finds out that they're a couple and he's like, this is terrible, how could you do this? And she's like, oh, you're right, we should break up. And I'm just like, you don't agree with any of the things that your ex thinks about anything else in your life, but you're going to let his negative opinion ruin the love that you currently have with this really amazing man who treats you well, who did nothing wrong, who is like, I did nothing wrong, but okay, I'll wait for you while you sort that out. What? So that did just annoy me. I was like, lady, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're not gonna listen to your husband, your ex-husband, your loser of an ex-husband who's wrong about everything, but anything else, but we're gonna let him break us up? I don't think so. We don't need that. But I loved everything else about the book, so it's really well worth reading. Then I read Rejected, which is Shadow Beast Shifters #1 by Jamin Eve. I gave this 4 stars. I kind of thought it was a debut novel. It's not. There was some writing that I didn't feel flowed and some very predictable twists, but I also loved it. It was slow burn enemies to lovers. He is a dark shadow god of the shifters, and she's a wolf shifter who gets rejected by her true mate, and in agony cries out to the god, and he comes and he takes her. And they go to a magical library and they save the world. And also he's like, mine, don't touch, but also you're annoying, stay over there. It was so good. Slow burn enemies to lovers. It was so good. Then the second one I gave 5 stars, and it was Reclaimed. And there's smut in this one, more of the couple. It ends on a massive cliffhanger. By the way, the beginning of the first book, she is bullied and abused by her pack. And so the very beginning, I kind of skimmed because I was like, I don't care about this. Waiting for the Shadow God. He was so good. And then the third one came out on the 31st, and I'm still in the middle of it, but that's fully on my reading slump. Has not one thing to do with the book itself. And then, lastly, the only book that I read in the last week and a half of March. Truly just a devastating turn of events. But this one was so good. It's Made to Love, which is Love After #2 by Alexandria House. I gave it 5 stars. Niles is a spoken word poet, and I've heard a lot about him. His poetry book is coming out April 9th, which is really cool. So I've seen him referenced in quite a few of the books. And then trivia, we see in the first book, she's the best friend of the main character there. And she has like this relationship with this male stripper, and it ends really poorly. And you see all of that in the first book. And then in this book, she's still kind of struggling just to get over him. And then she meets Niles. And so she's like resistant to him, and he's like, I didn't do those things to you. You need to not put that on me because I'm not the one that did it. So don't expect me to do the same things. And I just really loved them. I love them. She's a seamstress who has her own shop and makes all of her own clothes. And he's, like I said, a spoken word poet. And I just love them. I just love them. So that's it. That's all the books I read in March. Very slumpy. Very slumpy. I know the numbers might say it. The ratings probably do for a few of these. So the ones that were 5 stars really were amazing books because they were able to push through my slump, make me read it, make me love it, and make me give it 5 stars. So you should read all the 5-star books that I mentioned right away, immediately. They're well worth it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.